Gary Breen.
How you doing?
Come on. Come on.
It was a brilliant occasion at the Emirates, and it was weird, Joe, because even going into it, I was surprised that Arteta kind of billing the Real Madrid game as even massive and bigger than Bayern Munich last year in the quarterfinals. And you kind of thought at the time, oh, you're kind of like really buying into this mythical Real Madrid and putting them on a pedestal. And I was a bit worried. I understood the thinking in terms of geeing up the crowd, and he certainly did that. But I was worried about how emotional he can be as a manager on the sidelines and maybe it affecting the players as it has done in previous seasons. But he was cool, calm and collected, and none more so than Declan Rice. I mean, they are two in isolation on their own. They are incredible free kicks, but to come together as a pair, that was amazing stuff.
I've never seen that happen before.
No, and I was trying to think, have we ever seen it in the Champions League? Anyone score a brace like that? And if you think about the iconic free kick takers that we've seen over the years, David Beckham, you know, the incredible ones for United or England. I don't think we've ever seen him do twice quite like that. It was remarkable. It really was.
Yeah. It was so good. We were mentioning earlier, he'd only up until this point, obviously he's whipping in corners, and you know, prescient comment from you saying, look, he's underrated ability on a dead ball situation before the first free kick. Up until last night, he had in his nearly 400 professional matches taken a grand total of 12 free kicks.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And like, credit to the coaching staff to identify. I mean, we must have seen him do something, because the normal thinking with someone like Declan Rice is 6'3", attacks the ball well. He's got to be in for the corners. You know, he's a goal threat. You think about that late winner he got against Manchester United in the back post last season, and then you think, well, hold on a minute. Suddenly he's taking these corners, and they are just the level is incredible. And so much is made about Arsenal scoring and the chaos that the players create. And Gabriel, as such, has been the main focal point coming up for the back as the target. But the amount of times he puts it on the button, and whether it's near post, back post, in on top of the goalkeeper, and it's so precise because he takes that deep breath, he settles himself. It's as if he's taking a conversion. It's amazing ability. And I think so many times with the fee attached to Declan Rice, I've heard so many people saying, well, he can't play it at the base of midfield like Rodri because he can't take it on the half turn. And he maybe doesn't have that technical ability, but he absolutely does from a dead ball. And the flip side of that as well, Rodri don't have his running power. He couldn't do what Declan Rice does in terms of like getting into the box and then coming back and making saving tackles. So I do think even for £100 million, I don't think he actually gets the credit he deserves in terms of the player he is. And I think he'd get in any Premier League team, and I think he'd get in that Real Madrid team.
Yeah. The whip on the first, and what wasn't it amazing? Because my thought was, that's a bit like Le Tournois, and then it cuts to Roberto Carlos in the crowd.
Yeah.
It's kind of perfect, and then the power of the second.
Yeah, I don't think you even take that second on really, unless you're full of confidence after the first. And when you look at it as well, Joe, it's the distance, how far out he is, and I just couldn't. Even in commentary, you have that emotional part of it, and you're getting a little bit carried away, and you hope that people enjoy listening to that. But at the same time, you're thinking, how has he done that? I just couldn't work it out against someone like Courtois, who's like, this isn't like, you know, a 5'11" goalkeeper. This is 6'5" who dives full stretch, and it looked like two of Courtois wouldn't have saved that second one. It was just, I mean, in terms of the Emirates and what that stadium was ultimately built for. That evening last night it'll be iconic. It will live in a memory. I mean, there's 60 odd thousand in there, but as the years go by, there'll probably be 100,000 who'll make out they were there, or that Declan took the free kick from 50 yards out or something. But it was remarkable in terms of that performance, because up to half time, and Arteta alluded it to how they performed against Bayern Munich, that they felt they left goals behind, and as a result didn't put Bayern Munich to bed in last season's quarterfinal. And you knew at halftime they were thinking Arsenal played well. Real Madrid had those moments where they scare you, but as a collective, that's probably one of the poorest Real Madrid performances I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, they weren't good. Because, I mean, at halftime, Arsenal in the first half had 4 shots on target, and they included, you mentioned Rice's running power, him getting into the box and on the end of a header. And then the Partey chance, you know, kind of side-footed effort, felt like a big moment. And as you mentioned, Madrid had been really abject. Just, you know, a handful of moments where Mbappe comes to life and you're like, oh my, an intake of breath. You're like, oh my God, the pace. But really abject. And I did find myself thinking at halftime, They may regret that first half. And then Rice does his thing. And once Rice scored the first goal, the crowd were up. It was magical. There was like this authority suddenly in Arsenal's play. And Madrid it seemed powerless to respond to that, could not turn the tide.
No, and even in those scenarios with Real Madrid, because they're so experienced and they won't be playing particularly well at times, but you just feel that they can weather it. They've been down this road so often. But it was just the fact that quick second came, and in the third, so 3 goals in 17 minutes, and it just blew Real Madrid out of the water. And then you felt, Joe, and I felt, and I said it in commentary, I felt this is the moment to win the complete tie, the 2 legs here, in this 10, 15-minute period where that could have gone 4, even 5 to Arsenal, and then it is completely over. I know we kind of think about the fact that it's still Real Madrid in the Bernabeu. You feel that something special could happen if they get an early goal. Arsenal will be under pressure. But when I've seen Real Madrid this season and Liverpool beat them comfortably, and that is a kind of October, November version of Real, I never really judge them at that. And then, of course, against Manchester City, and again, I didn't feel that was a vintage performance. But you always feel that the April, May version of Real Madrid is the special one. And that's where opposition have so much trouble. But I think Arsenal got to go there with so much confidence in terms of being able to block this game out, because they'll sit in a low block, Arsenal. They'll have no problems in terms of soaking up the pressure. It's just what happens at that particular stadium.
Yeah. By the way, just a quick shout out for Mikel Moreno. If that was a 1-0 win last night, we'd be all saying, what a great goal by Moreno. It'll be completely forgotten in 5 years' time.
Yeah. It's a brilliant finish. The ball seems to be behind him, and he just angles his body to get that whip. It's a goal that you often see Odegaard scoring for Arsenal. They work a lot on that cutback, and he finishes it, but he's done so well. And I mean, listen, Saka was exceptional in that first half, and the balls that he's putting into the box, and it felt like if there was an out-and-out killer striker, a real number 9, that there would have been a couple of tap-ins for him because of the quality of Saka, because he was just memorising in terms of he was just dropping his shoulder all the time against Alaba. And invariably, when the midfielder was trying to come out and collect him inside, it was Modric, or who at 39 years of age is going to struggle. And Camavinga is normally so assured. We've seen him for France against us at international level, so good. And he was just rattled as well. So Saka's another one. Everyone can talk about that Fab Four for Real Madrid, even at their best. Saka gets in that team for me. I think he's a sensational player.
Wow. That was his first start in 108 days as well, which is really testament to him.
Yeah.
I suppose in advance of the game, Gary, one of the big worries, if not the big worry for Arsenal, was that they were missing Gabriel. So it was Kiwior making just his 11th start in all competitions of the season alongside Saliba, and they put Timber at right back. You know, some people were saying, like, get Timber in centre half or with him, or, you know, Ben White, move him in. But he went with Kiwior. And I'm sure some of this is down to Madrid's poor play, but like that was a good innings. Like Arsenal without Gabriel, they have a 40% win rate as opposed to 60% with them. He's colossal.
Yeah, do you remember early on in the game, opening 5 minutes, a ball was thrown to him, went underneath his foot, Kiwior, and Real Madrid broke, and you thought, oh no, that's not the type of start you want. But what was interesting in that selection, because he did have that option of Timber going in or Ben White, and I think it just shows a little bit of the maturity that Arteta's got as a manager, because there was a couple of times over the last 2 or 3 seasons that if one player's out, he bends the whole team out of shape to kind of compensate. And I remember they had a left-back issue, so he put Xhaka out of midfield into left-back at that time, and you're thinking, and the knock-on effect was awful. So now I think he's maturing as a manager. He was up against someone so experienced, so, you know, iconic in terms of what he's achieved, Ancelotti. And I worried about not just the head-to-head of the players, but I worried about the head-to-head in terms of managing what was happening, the in-game management. But that was a good decision. Just go light for light, because their knock-on effect is not that big. I know you're up against world-class attacking players, but, you know, he should be able to cope within a good structure, and Arsenal do have a good defensive structure out of possession.
Yeah. Quick mention, by the way, Miles Lewis-Skelly.
That's a joke.
This kid, it's a real deal.
It's amazing, Joe, because he just looks so comfortable. And there's this quote that Declan Rice says about him. It sums him up. He said that Miles Lewis-Skelly looks like he's been made in a lab. And he absolutely does. I mean, how can you be that good at that age and that comfortable? Now, you can be a young left back who's good in that left back position, because invariably no one's closing you down. You've got a lot of space. It's where the most space is in the pitch, in possession. But he goes into central midfield and he's taking the ball in a half turn in the real danger areas where if you lose that ball, Madrid are gone and it's a goal, whatever, you know what I mean? But the confidence to take that ball, knowing that he's got his opponent that side, so he's got the ball safe side, and he just rolls him, and then he makes those break line passes. He's an exceptional talent, and that's a young kid who's keeping out when everyone's fit about 5 international left backs on the Arsenal bench.
Yes, I completely agree. And so like a young left back, you think of Ashley Cole, I suppose, for obvious reasons. But you know, when Cole emerges on the scene, there's the pace, and he's got Henry there, and he's rampaging forward, or like an Andy Robertson rampaging forward, and that's how you imagine a young player with his ability kind of making a mark. It's the intricacy that Lewis-Skelly has here that a player his age shouldn't have. As you popping into midfield, little reverse pass, breaking lines. That's the part that I'm like, whoa, this is an intelligence on top of like the youth and the pace and that rampaging aspect that a lot of good young players would have.
Yeah, it's that development. So he's obviously been at Arsenal under this way of playing or this design that Arteta would have learned under Pep Guardiola in terms of those inverted fullbacks. We first saw it with Philipp Lahm at Bayern Munich with Pep. But you're right, because you can think about, what's the young lad at Man City, the Lancashire Lahm? What's he called? Oh, for God's sake. You know, young lad, the fullback, and he goes into midfield.
Rico Lewis.
Fella. Yeah, Rico Lewis. So
I didn't know that was his nickname. You threw me with that part, but if you just
the Lancashire Lamb.
But the Lancashire Lamb. That's not great. It's not great. But go on. Oh, sorry. I was thinking like a baby sheep as opposed to Philip Lamb. I'm with you now. Go on. I was thinking the lamb. That doesn't sound very intimidating.
Oh yeah, but. You think about him going to midfield, so he's relatively comfortable because he is a midfielder. But then when he gets squared up in those fullback positions, he's so isolated. He looks so vulnerable, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But Lewis-Skelly doesn't. Yeah. He takes on that challenge. You go up against the best wingers in the world and say, okay, I'll take you on. In fact, he can be a little bit too brash and too confident because he'll look for contact in and around the box. And of course, you remember that penalty against Everton. But it is remarkable. And him and Wanyeri, these are two young lads who are coming. And I said this to you before, Joe, these are two young lads who are coming from the youth team and will affect the first 11. They won't be lads who are just there on the bench in a way that, you know, that Emil Smith-Rowe and Joe Willox and Nketiah, those type of guys, great squad players and a massive achievement to come through the ranks and be a squad player at Arsenal. These are starting 11 players. Yeah. Remarkable.
Yeah. I'm repeating myself a touch here, but I before you came on with the lads, I posited a theory about Real Madrid, which I'll put to you in quicker fashion now. Look, I think that the reason is that Vinicius Jr. won't work back, and there was a sticking plaster in the Champions League final where Bellingham was put on the left wing and they went 4-4-2 and saw off Dortmund. But there is a fundamental lack of balance to this brilliant team, and they have found themselves in a situation where Ancelotti, I think, has given up trying to get Vinicius to work back, and so it's like, okay, 4-4-2, but we have Bellingham, who is a lot of things, but he's not a left winger playing in a 4-4-2. And so with the ball, no natural width, Alaba can't get forward. It's just it's clunky. And then without the ball, especially if they lose it at a dangerous moment, there's a scramble of like, okay, if I'm Bellingham, I'll try and get back over to the left wing. But if Modric is there closer to it, you go and I'll fill in middle.
Yeah.
And like, where's the most dangerous part of the pitch from an Arsenal point of view? Like Saka and Odegaard must have been thinking, like, this is on. Ancelotti has to do something here. This has been going on for about 8 months. Yeah. That left side vulnerability, because Vinicius won't work back. Bellingham can't be the answer.
No, and you look at it in terms of the modern game. You just can't. You don't carry players, even ones as good as that. And there are certain tweaks you can do. And you think about Salah not really coming back all the time at Liverpool. But nevertheless, the other guys are coping with that. But you've got maybe 3 players there are just not doing it. And this is against a makeshift back four. Rudiger looked like he was struggling with that heavily strapped left knee. You've got fullbacks in positions where it's not their natural position. So they're so vulnerable. So it's not as if you've got like an iconic defence who can cope and repel the attacks while those guys get back into shape. And 4-4-2, I was looking at the game thinking, Arsenal, all you have to do is make early passes at your wingers and they just won't be able to get back in time and you'll have 1v1 situations. And it proved that way. And I got frustrated at times because I felt good early balls going out to Saka, but it wasn't going out on the left-hand side to Martinelli. I don't know if that's by design because it goes out to Saka, Odegaard. They create those overloads on that right wing and then that cross comes in and Declan Rice then attacks as that second centre forward. So both him and Marino are coming in then with pace, attacking crosses. And I'm just looking at Ancelotti and I just think he's a brilliant in-game manager. But even him, and you're right, Joe, to highlight it, that he's probably thinking, listen, I just have to try and think of something to kind of make us a bit more secure and rely on that brilliance going forward. But that's not vintage Real Madrid and Arsenal, which I was delighted to see. And Arteta alluded to it at the beginning, is that don't play the badge, don't play the history, play the 11 you're playing, and Arsenal are superior to that 11.
Yeah. So, well, final thoughts then. Bernabeu, are you taking your house and your mortgage and you're saying, no chance are they coming back? Because, I don't know, like Mbappe scores first 15, 20, 25 minutes, a whole thing flips.
Oh, no, listen, I know, like, you know, it was a great occasion last night and you wanted to really enjoy it as such, and the players, and you want them to be as, as happy as they actually were. But they kept saying, listen, it's only half time. And of course it is. And they do have that kind of air of, there's something about them in the Champions League. They proved it. And you're thinking, this isn't a team that kind of like, wins and like late winners as such. It's like they're winning games that they've lost. It's incredible over the years, and no more so than this. But you're right. I do see it as that. Concede early, Arsenal, and then the atmosphere will ramp up. I can't imagine that players of that stature will not have bruised egos today and thinking, I can't wait to get at you guys again. But the reality is, yeah, you may well do that, but Arsenal, they can catch them on the counter. I have no doubt about that in terms of Martinelli, Saka and things like that. So I expect Arsenal to score, but it would be some game.
It's so interesting. I mean, this is the way that Arsenal can turn a disappointing season into something spectacular. This is it,
Yeah, absolutely, because it's 3 seasons now of like where their points total is more than Manchester City and Liverpool over these 3 seasons, and it's such hard work what they've had done, and they've been incredible in terms of where Arteta took them over when they were 8th at the time, and the club was so disconnected between the players and the supporters. But the reality is no tangible reward. And I felt that it was drifting towards that again this season. Liverpool going to win the title. A lot of pressure now looking at Arteta, thinking this is 5 years. You spent a lot of money. You've got a good team, should be winning. But I did feel that this tie, prior to the actual game happening, presented them an opportunity to energise their season again. And wow, did it prove that way last night?
Yeah.
They've got a great opportunity. There's better teams than Real Madrid ahead of them. I absolutely believe that. I think PSG are probably the PSG performance against Liverpool in Paris is the best I've seen this season. They were sensational. It was a level of football that I thought I've not seen before. Vitinha getting the ball off the goalkeeper. Liverpool trying to close them down. They're good at pressing. He was just dropping the shoulder. They were out through Liverpool. Couldn't lay a glove on them. They're the team to beat.
Right. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Gary Breen. Pleasure.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, mate. Good luck.